So moving up in our video series about learning Linux, we reach to the files and directory permissions. So in this video we'll have a deep dive in a very important topic about Linux, which is users and permissions. So stick with me to find out more. Hello and what's up guys, Medium Guy here. I hope you're learning more day by day and you're enjoying my video series. In this video we'll have a deep dive about Linux users and permissions for the files and directories. We'll also see how to change the permissions for files and directories in the two ways that we have, which are one absolute and two symbolic ways to change the permissions. So without any delay, let's get down to work. So permissions totally divided into three parts, which are the permissions for the owner of that file or directory, second for the group that the file or directory exists, and the third part is the permissions for the other users which are not included in the group that the file exists in that. So generally we have three types of permissions, which are read, write, and execute. So basically the users can either read, write, or execute a file. So in files, the read permission is that a user can read the content of a file. The write permission is that a user has access to change or remove the content of a file, and execute permission is that when a user has access to execute a file as a program in the Linux shell. However, this is a little bit different for directories. Like for example, the read permission is that when a user has access to read the files and directories inside a directory. The write is when a user can make a new file or directory inside a directory, and execute is when a user can execute files inside a specific directory. So let's get in action and see it for ourselves. What do I mean by these users and permissions? So if I switch to the terminal, if I hit ls, I see that in the directory that I am in right now, I have some directories and files. So if I hit ls-la, I see some more details about the files and directories that exist in the exact same directory. So the first column, as we saw in the previous video, is the permissions for the files and directories. So the first letter, if it is D, will mean that the row is a directory, and if it is a dash, it will mean that it is a file. So the next three letters will stand for the permissions for the owner of that file, and the next three letters will stand for the permissions for the group which the file belongs to. And the last three letters will stand for the permissions of the other users that is not the owner of the file and also does not exist in the group that the file belongs to. So as we can see, we have three letters for each permissions, and as in this case we have R and W, which stands for read and write, and we have a hyphen for the owner of the file. So basically the owner of the file can both read and write this file, but cannot execute this file. And also the users that exist in the same group will only be able to read the file, and also the other users will also only be able to read the file. So basically they won't be able to change the content of that file. So if I hit nano readme, in here I can make changes. I'll hit Ctrl X, Y, enter to save the file, and if I cat readme, I see that the changes that I made has been written to the file. So because basically I am the owner of that file, I am able to write to that file. But here in a moment I'll change my user and I won't be able to write to that file. So if I say su test, I'll hit the password, and now I am the test user. So if I hit who am I am the test user. So if these commands are not familiar to you, you've probably not watched my previous videos. So I'll put the links down below if you want to watch them so you can access them easily. And now here, if I again try to nano the readme file, in here I get an error. The file readme is unwritable for this user. Again, if I make changes, if I hit Ctrl X, I'll hit Y and I'll hit enter. So it'll throw another error saying that the permission is denied. So basically this user does not have the permissions to write to this file. So I'll hit Ctrl X, I'll hit no to exit the nano. And if I switch back to my previous user, which is the owner of this file, in here, basically what I can do is change the permissions for this file. So in order to change the permissions for a file, we have both symbolic and absolute ways to change these permissions. So in symbolic, which is also easier for beginners to understand better, basically the command we'll use is the chmod, so it stands for change mode. And the next we'll try to pass our new permissions. So basically we have plus for adding permissions, we have minus for removing permissions, and we have equal sign to set the total permission for a user. So in here I'll pass plus W, and then I'll pass the file name, which is readme, and I'll hit enter. And if I again say ls-la, so basically because I am the owner of the file and I had the write permission, it won't make any changes. But if I hit chmod plus X and I'll hit enter, if I hit ls-la, in here I see that the X letter has been added to the permissions for the owner of the file. So basically I changed the permissions for the readme file. So again, I can change the plus to minus and hit enter. Again, hit ls-la. In here I see that the X has gone away and this file is no longer executable by the owner of the file. So in here, if I want to change the permissions for the group or the other users, I can simply put the letter G or O, which stands for group or the other users. So if I hit G plus W to the readme, if I hit enter, I'll hit ls-la, and in here I should be able to see the write permission has been added to the group which this file belongs to. So this is how we change the permissions in the symbolic way. Also, we have the equal sign. If I, for example, say O equals to read and write, I'll set the whole permission for the other users to this file. If I hit enter and hit ls-la, in here I see that the read write permission has been applied to the other user's permission. So that's all for the symbolic mode for changing the permissions. And as I mentioned, we have an absolute mode for changing the permissions for files and directories. So basically in this method, we work with numbers. So we have 3 total numbers. Again, each stands for the owner of the file, the group, and the other users. So basically 0 means no permissions, 1 stands for execution, and 2 stands for write permission, and 4 stands for read permission. So basically if I say 7, the user would have the read permission, write permission, and execute permission. So adding 4 with 2 and 1 would give us 7. And also, for example, if I say 5, the numbers 4 and 1, which stands for read and execute. And also if I have 3, the permissions would be only execute and write. So in order to change the permissions, again I'll have the chmod and I'll pass 744, and I'll define the file name if I hit enter. So I expect only the owner of the file would have all the permissions, and the other users and the users inside the group should have only the read permission for this file. If I hit ls-la in here, as I can see, the owner has all the permissions, and the group permission and the other users permission is only the read permission. Also, like for example, if I hit 777, again hit ls-la, this file has all the permissions for all the users. So basically all users has all the permissions for this file. So we have two more commands to learn, one for changing the owner of the file and one for changing the group of the file. So the root user has access to all the files and is able to change the owners of the file. So in order to change the file's owner, if I hit ls-la, I want to change the readme file's owner. So the command, I'll use chown. I'll pass the user's name and I'll pass the file's name, and I'll say sudo in the beginning. If I hit enter, again if I hit ls-la, in here I see that the owner for this file is now the test user. So again, we have another command to change the files group. The command I can use is chgrp for changing the group. I'll pass the group name, like for example, I'll pass the Docker group that I have inside my machine, and I'll pass the file's name, and I'll say sudo in the beginning. I hit enter, ls-la. In here I see that the group for this specific file has been changed to the Docker. So that's all for this video. That's all about the permissions and changing them and owning files by users, the different types for changing the permissions. And if you have any questions, just go ahead and ask me in the comment section down below. Also, don't forget to watch my previous videos in this video series, and please do like and subscribe. And with that, I hope to see you in the next videos.